Hey, welcome back to What Do You Think of This? We're revisiting the best things from our past to let you know whether they're the best things for your future. I'm Jeff Abiad, and with me again is the one, the only Josue Escobar.
What's up, everybody?
Hey,
what's up, Jeff?
It was pointed out to me this week that our episodes have been related to one another. So I don't know if we're going to continue this tradition on, but I was thinking because episode 1 to 2 was Spielberg to Spielberg, sort of. Yep. And then in the image from Goonies to Superman, you've got Sloth wearing a Superman t-shirt.
Yep.
Into Superman, who's obviously wearing a Superman.
Super Sloth.
Super Sloth. And now I'm gonna put a little tease in the artwork for this episode. Yep. I guess this is happening retroactively, and see if people will get it. Mm-hmm. And maybe I can continue this on. So for those who are super observant.
Yeah, I got to pay attention to the artwork.
Just giving myself more work to do. It's so hot. I don't want to go outside anyway.
Yeah.
What are you doing to beat the heat?
Going to the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's not crazy torrential pour down or whatever in thunderstorms, we're going to the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in that 3-4 o'clock hour, not the high noon.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
We've got to protect everyone's skin.
All those years in Arizona, and most of our swimming happened at nighttime, so it's still kind of that way now. But I guess we're doing that too.
Yeah.
Do you remember that trip? Were you on it when we took a youth group trip from the church years ago to King's Dominion? I don't think you were on that.
No, I don't think so.
But it was one of these. So King's Dominion is an amusement park. It was one of these super hot, unexpected summer days, and I don't.
Doesn't King's Dominion have a water park too?
They do, but we didn't go to it.
Okay,
That wasn't part of the thing.
I don't think I've ever been to the water park there.
All I remember, it may have been my first time there, it was so hot, people were passing out in line. Like we're in line for that.
Oh, no, yeah, I was there.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that lady? There's some dude. Yeah, this lady passes out in front of us.
Yes.
And her husband still gets onto the ride. He
still got on the ride. We had waited for so long.
I forgot about that.
And he's like, "Are you okay if I go on?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "What? You're going to get on the ride?" That's right. That was the summer that my hair was green.
Remember that? Oh my gosh. Because I thought, didn't you get it purple first or something? Or blue, and then it turned green or something?
No, it was the other way around.
You did green first and then purple?
Yeah, and this wasn't intentional. Okay, I'm always down to do something weird to my hair. I would never have colored it green except the girl who cut my hair at the time was super excited that I wanted a non-normal haircut because she's like, everybody else around the DC area wants like the Bill Clinton haircut, which is just super basic. And I don't know, I'm a musician. Like I'm usually looking for an interesting haircut anyway. It wasn't that, but she's like, "Oh, do you mind if I do something like you don't have to pay for it. I just want to get something so I can take some pictures and use it as an advertisement."
That's right, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, do whatever you want. So yeah, she cool cut, some weird shape to it. It was great. And color. So she bleached a bit and then dyed that bit green. What you're remembering, though, is because after this day at King's Dominion, I had sweat so much. It was, I don't know if green was coming down my face, but it had come out of the hair. So it morphed from this green color to more of like a bluish purple and then eventually blonde.
I don't remember it being a youth thing that we went on. I thought it was just a bunch of us from church, but
I think it was maybe an excuse the youth group was so small.
Exactly. It was like, we were all really close. Friends. Yeah. It's like, okay, it's just a bunch of friends going to King's Dominion.
Your wife may have been there before she was your wife.
I don't know.
I don't know if she would.
No, I don't think she was. I don't think she was. No, not for that one. It was Josh and Rachel.
But it was so hot. And I mean, we were just there at King's Dominion with my kids. So their band does a trip every year now and parents can sign up to go as chaperones. Yeah. And it's super fun. But my kids are not really into roller coasters, which is sort of my fault. We took them, my family, we went out to Hershey Park.
Yeah.
And this was years ago. So they were tall enough, because my kids are super tall anyway, to ride the rides, but they had never, and they're not into it. Were you into roller coasters?
Oh, yeah.
All the time, though, growing up?
Yeah, for sure.
It took me a bit, but once I got into it, I was like, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
So we get in line. I'm like, guys, we're just going to go for it. We're going to get on a big one, and it's going to be great. You'll be fine. It'll be scary, but you're going to love it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what the ride is at Hershey. It is large. Uh-huh. And me and Jimmy are talking them up the whole time in line. You're going to be great. It's going to be awesome. They're working out their plan. We don't want to sit in the front or the back. We want to be in the middle, like you do, and we want to be in between you. so we can grab your hands if we want to. I'm
Oh,
like, oh yeah,
gosh,
that's fine. So we get on the ride, and the way that the coaster is set up, there's 4 in a row,
Mhm.
but the 2 middle seats are elevated and to the front.
Oh.
So they were out there in
Oh,
front of us. I could
jeez.
barely reach them. They couldn't see us. Already bad. But
Yep.
now I'm the parent. We're trying to talk them down. Like, it's going to be great, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I appreciated about those rides as a kid and why I went for them was because you get that whole like harness. There's that like, I'm strapped in, so I feel safe.
Yeah.
This one had no harness. It was a lap bar.
Oh, dang.
And it was a
Freak 'em
big, it was a
out.
significant lap bar, but it was not the full deal. And we're, loops, all this stuff. And so since then, we've been trying to ease our way back to coasters and kind of getting there. But even this last trip to King's Dominion, Ephraim just left me in line for the Intimidator. We
jeez.
got all the way to
Yeah.
the front, and then he just bailed on me at the last second. I'm like, well, I guess I'll go.
You didn't start them off with like the Snoopy ride at Kings Dominion first?
We may have done one small one like that and then just went to the big one, or something like that.
My kids are too young to enjoy roller coasters now, but they're getting there. I mean, they're on the shorter side, so who knows if when they'll be able to do like the really big ones. But for sure, we should definitely take them to like the Snoopy roller coaster ride and
Yeah.
whatever, just to get them started. I think they'll all love it. I'm for sure. I know Ezra will love it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to go until it's cool again. It's,
course.
Oh, it's so hot
Yeah.
right now.
I haven't been to Kings Dominion or a theme park in a long time.
Yeah, it's fun, but now I'm the age where I'm like, I need to gauge which rides I get on because I'm leaving here with a headache regardless. And if
Yeah.
I go on one of those old wood monstrosities, it's over for me. You know?
What is the wood one called? The Grizzly at
Yeah.
Kings Dominion? They crackles and everything everywhere.
And I'm not like scared of it. It just hurts my head and my back, and then it's over.
Yeah, because it does. It's basically like it shakes you really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not into it. Well, we at dinner after we had recorded last week's episode, sat down with some of the quotes that we were talking about,
Yeah.
and my family came up with a whole bunch more.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Okay, so I'm going to
I'm
give
ready.
you some more one-liners that I feel like are pretty obvious,
Yeah.
but people at home can play along. So here's my first one, and they're all pretty short. We were trying to keep them close to 3 words, but it's a little longer.
Yeah.
Here's the first one. I'll be back.
Oh, Terminator
Yeah, it is Terminator
2.
2, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. This one stumped my family for a bit. I had to give them a few. I have a feeling you might get this on the first one.
Yeah.
I know Kung Fu.
Matrix.
Yeah, we had just talked about that. Yeah, that one took us a while. How about this one? Great Scott.
Back to the
Yeah,
Future.
you quote that all the time. You're killing me, Smalls.
Oh my gosh, that's so familiar, and I've used it so many times, but I don't remember anymore what movie it actually came from.
Can you visualize the character saying it?
No, I can't.
It's a kid.
Killing me, Smalls.
Kill me, Smalls.
I don't know. Man, I know I've said this a dozen times.
Okay, here's another quote. The Great Bambino. Same movie.
Over my head. I'm not, what?
Well, this is like your wife with Hey You Guys. Oh, let me see if I can think of another one. Well, Baby Ruth?
Is it the Goonies?
No.
Because he says, baby, remember he gives him a Baby Ruth in that movie.
People at home are screaming right now.
I love
at
it.
their stereos or whatever. Whatever you're listening to on.
All right, so what is it?
It's The Sandlot.
Oh, The Sandlot. See, that's one of the ones that I think I should have loved more
Mhm.
or watched more than the Goonies.
Yes.
But that one I'm not as 100% familiar with. I gotta watch that again.
We're going to have to get back to that one.
and get all the memories back.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good one. Okay, this one came from Justice. It is not a short quote, but he said it, and it was so funny that if I had to share it. Let's get out of these ladies' clothes and get into our tights.
Is that Robin Hood?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Men in Tights. He pulled that quote.
So-
I'm like, how do you remember that?
How many
It's such
times have you guys watched that?
Only a couple.
And you
Well, with
remembered it?
them, yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely worth. We
Pretty
got to
good.
do that
Yeah,
one
for sure.
soon. Fragile.
Oh, Christmas Story.
Yeah, that's a one-word one. That was a good one. Okay, how about Welcome to Earth?
Oh, Independence Day.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one, I gotta sing it. It's my birthday.
Oh, Thor. Oh my gosh, Thor.
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Yeah.
I love that one so much. I made
What's
it a
that?
ringtone.
What's his name? The actor. Forget
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, coming from Jurassic Park.
when he hits the buttons, like which one of these buttons does something or whatever.
Yeah, he's on that.
The hologram in the background. So good.
Yeah, I love that one.
This is his party bus or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, party ship. Don't touch anything.
That was like our Airbnb.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Everything's sticky.
Well, let's dig into this. So this is the first episode that we're going into some music.
I'm really excited about this because it's different. It's a treat for everybody because it's different from like the movies thing or whatever. It's like this is what this podcast is about. Like, hey, you know about this more than I do. I didn't.
I know.
You know
I know
mean?
this
Like,
so well.
but it's a good like. All right, tell me what you think of it.
Yeah.
How did this make you feel? All that kind of thing. Like this is the type of conversation. Like it's right down our alley.
We're getting to experience this because how familiar were you with this previously?
Gosh. I mean, honestly, like maybe 1%. Only because my wife had referenced it before. You guys had talked about it before in the past. Was not something that was on my radar. When the album came out, I was...
It was early 90s.
7?
So yeah, you couldn't have even been 10 yet. I was under 10.
Yeah, I was like 7 years old.
I don't think I came across this album until probably a little bit later when Columbia House had one of their deals that you would get in the mail and like, get these 10 albums for $5. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh yeah. They used to send you in the mail and it would be like a bunch of stamps of different albums.
Yeah.
I think maybe that was the movies. I don't know. People will remember if they're old. And you could just select and they'd have a deal like, sign up now and you can get 10 albums for something super cheap, $10, whatever. And the only deal was you had to commit to being a monthly member. And that was you had to buy like a certain amount at full price over the course of your membership to get out of it.
Huh.
But you never did that because they were always having deals.
Yeah.
So I had this, I don't even think I had this album from that. I had this album probably on cassette tape.
Wow. Yeah.
Let me give you the backstory of where we're coming from here.
I mean, I had some stuff on cassette tape for sure, and I had some things that definitely I think this album was influenced from.
Okay, and that's why I'm gonna love this conversation so much because I was very sheltered musically.
Yeah.
Okay, there are a few reasons for that. One is conservative Christian culture.
Yep.
So we didn't listen to any secular music. Now I know that word very well, but people who aren't from that might not know. Like it was like you're listening to only Christian music. My parents came into the church when right before I was born in that context. And my dad is from another culture. So the music he was listening to is in another language. He was not into anything that was in the zeitgeist of whatever the 80s and 90s. Maybe I heard some stuff on the radio as a kid. I thought I liked Michael Jackson, but that was only because I heard him like every once in a while around.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson's great, but I didn't know anything. So my memory of being exposed to this album is after we had moved across country. And at that time, the first album I ever purchased was Carmen, Addicted to Jesus. It was on tape. And I still could probably perform that entire album. That Stephen Curtis Chapman, whatever. And so these are like my formative years when I was just getting into what is music? Who am I? About to get into junior high and then in a church culture or whatever, what can I listen to? And then digesting this. And some of these songs, because this whole album is full of samples of other stuff, which hip hop culture does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I didn't know that. I was being exposed to what they were sampling for the first time. So I'm thinking DC Talk is writing all this stuff.
That's so funny. That's hilarious.
And they even reference that they're sampling stuff in this album.
Did you know what that meant then?
No, I didn't even know what that was. I thought it was all theirs. I guess I let the cat out of the bag.
DC Talk, Free at Last is an iconic album. It was definitely a popular one in my household when we were teens. And my brothers and I would sing along to it in the car, and it was just a lot of fun. And definitely made DC Talk a household name with a lot of Christian teenagers. It was pretty awesome.
Okay, how familiar were you with the repertoire of DC Talk at all? Because they've got quite the discography.
Honestly, none, I don't think.
Yeah.
So you were saying, your parents, the Christian culture, they only wanted you to listen to Christian music.
And this wasn't even necessarily them. That was just like my mom was listening to Maranatha worship or whatever. So when I was looking for stuff to listen to, this is what I found.
That was like geared towards your demographic.
Yeah, because they weren't listening to this.
Yeah.
I was.
Exactly. Well, my parents were the same way. But I think they didn't have the same, I don't know, what you call it, but control over what we listened to or understood. Because like, they're a different culture also. They didn't speak English. They didn't like it. They didn't like speaking English. They still don't like speaking English,
Sure.
which is crazy. But we were listening to music in English, me and my brothers, and we could get away with not listening to Christian music because they didn't understand.
And you and your brothers, like they were probably listening to stuff that you were then getting exposed to from
Exactly.
them.
Yeah. Because I mean, my brother, Edgar, is the same age as he's 5 years older than me. And so what he was listening to was what his friends were
Exactly.
like exposing him to. So we didn't necessarily listen to any Christian music growing up other than what we listened to at church, which is worship and praise.
Yeah. Okay. And for me, I'm getting this music from other kids in my youth group. That's probably where I got this specific album. I had DC Talk's album purchased on cassette, New Thing.
We got to tell people what is DC Talk. What does DC stand for?
Did you already know this? That it stands
I didn't know this.
For
My wife told me what it meant.
Decent Christian Talk. And it's Toby Mac.
Yep. Which are still around.
He's still around. He's still doing it. Michael Tate.
Yep.
Still around. He's headlining the Newsboys now, which is a whole other thing. And Kevin Max.
Yes.
And
who is it doing anything?
He pops up every now and then
Yeah.
doing something. I don't know what.
My wife had told me that he'd like gone through the whole deconstruction
Yep.
of his faith thing.
Totally.
So I don't know where he's at now.
I only know their names because it's in this album. It was Toby,
Yeah.
Mike, and Kevin.
Yeah.
And so I have to go through the song in my head, and I know it. So, and I picked this album because it feels iconic to me of an era. Because
For sure it is.
this was only like their second big album. They went on to, in Christian culture, do huge things. They even probably performed. They were on, I think, like some of the late shows, but they went on tour on like the Crusade tour with Billy Graham. So
wild.
all over the place,
Yeah.
you know. So if you're a Christian, you probably still know them. And after this came the album Jesus Freak, which was huge.
Yeah.
And then other stuff since then.
That one, I think Jesus Freak was the one that I think when we commingled with like the Hispanic, because I grew up in the Hispanic church, right?
Yeah.
And so when we like did things with the other churches, or if there was like a worship thing that we did with, and we collaborated with other churches, and there was other youth to kind of mingle with.
Yeah.
That's when there was those little sprinklings of, oh, this is Christian music. This is what we're listening to as young youth or whatever, and exposed to that. And honestly, growing up, I came up with this, just like shooting that stuff down. Like, oh, you guys, you're just copying these other hip hop artists. The Christians are just ripping off all this other cool music.
And the Christians were blatantly doing that because that was their conviction. Like, hey, you shouldn't be listening to this stuff. And they would literally give you the alternative.
Yep,
like,
exactly.
You'd walk into the Christian bookstore at the time because that's where you got your Christian music.
Lifeway.
Yep. And, and ours was gospel supplies.
Wow.
And you'd have a list of like, here's all the cool secular bands, that everybody loves. Here's a list of Christian bands that kind of sound like it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you like this, you might also like this. If you like the Beastie Boys, you might be into Audio Adrenaline.
Yeah.
Or, so I don't know where DC Talk's out on that line because they're pretty unique for what they do.
Yeah.
But pulling in a lot of stuff and the culture around, for people who don't know,
Sure.
I feel like I was there,
I mean, before, like I had kind of talked to close friends about this a little bit, like, people from church. I'm like, hey, the next one we're doing is this album.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it is. And I don't think I'm not sure anyone said, yeah, I know what that is.
Especially, I feel like, this is a really small subset of people, but the people who know this will probably be able to sing the entire album. Like they know it.
Like my wife could sing the entire, she said when she was listening to this back in the day, she like knew the entire thing of driving in the car with her brothers.
And you would just listen to it
The
over
entire thing.
and over again. Yeah, this came up in my mind recently because we were driving so many road trips.
Yeah.
And I was just looking for something to listen to that I finally was like, hey, why don't you pull up this random, because now you can do that.
Yeah.
Just stream some old album.
But that's what it was like back in the day, where you like the cassette, or when we started getting CDs, you listen to that CD
over and over.
Over and over and over again.
Even
Nowadays,
the tracks you
people
didn't
don't do
like.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside of doing like a mixtape, which was some work, you're just listening to the album that you have.
You also did that because it was work to eject the CD.
Right.
Go through your folder of a bunch of CDs to put a new CD while you're driving.
You keep saying
not supposed to
CD,
do
but
that.
this was full on cassette.
This was cassette.
For me.
Yeah. But same thing. I mean, I didn't do this. I wasn't driving when cassettes were out, right? But what did you do while you were driving when you had a bunch of cassettes? Did you have like a little like...
Well, in our context, the kids were controlling the cassettes. They were handing the Donut Man, Salty, and DC Talk up to the front. You know, the car was high tech when it would automatically play the reverse side for you, and you didn't have to physically flip the tape.
Yeah.
You know?
But
cool. I do remember that in the church context being this element of like, give up all your like worldly stuff. And okay, I say all that to say, like, I'm a worship leader now. Yeah. This is what I do. I fully believe that what you put in comes out.
Yeah.
And there is that truth element to that, but it was so extreme. And it was almost like voodoo. Like, if you have these tapes in your house, they're going to poison the minds of your children and your family. And, you know, it was just, it got real weird, right? So we were just getting rid of stuff. But then I remember coming across people in our band or whatever that had these musical influences. And it was real contentious in the church environment. Like, oh, well, I listen to such and such because how else are you going to know? And I was very much a purist. Like, I'm not going to listen to anything else, not knowing that all this stuff I'm getting here, even in this album, is coming. You can't avoid that.
No, you can't. I mean, I remember, you know, in high school, I had a guitar class in high school. I think we were freshmen. And the teacher, my guitar teacher, did this really cool thing. And he played the guitar really well. He knew music really, really well. He did this thing where he was like, hey guys, just, you know, music history lesson. Throw out a song that everybody likes right now, whatever. And at the time, I don't remember what was thrown out, but something like, you know, System of a Down, Chop Suey, right? He played it on the guitar himself, and he pulled out all the influences and chord progression, notes, and things like whatever, the types of scales used in the song, and he pulled it out all the way down to like until he got to you know, to like Beethoven.
That's cool.
And it's like this, everything is influenced and everything has, you know, a start from somewhere. We've all built on the shoulders of somebody else's idea.
Yep.
And I think back in the day when I was like, if this came across, you know, me and my brothers, because I only listened to everything that they were listening to.
Yep.
We would have been, oh, this is a
complete ripoff of.
Complete ripoff. We would have shut it down. We would have kind of insulted it. But at the same time, now I think about it today and I go, well, it is a creative thing. Like something influenced you, and now you're acknowledging it. So you're almost like complimenting it in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if these guys were doing that then.
Who knows?
About that.
But that's that whole sample culture was a lot of that too. And it was obvious. And music is kind of like a language. You think of the words that we're using now, and you compare it to language 100 years ago or, you know, literature or whatever.
For sure.
It's even the English language is developing, right? And you're pulling from that. And the language itself isn't inherently bad. There are bad words included. There are bad maybe things to talk about or whatever. But the elements, they all start in the same place.
Yeah.
And musically too, like we use stuff all the time. And it just becomes a question for the individual of like, do I feel okay pulling from this? And what if I say this thing?
Yeah.
Because now I could say phrases to you that are tied to maybe a movement, a political movement or a media thing or whatever that are in the zeitgeist right now. If I said it, you'd be like, oh, that's whatever. I don't. But we know that in the year 2024, 10 years, 15 years, it might mean nothing to somebody.
That's true.
I remember going on a missions trip and we were working with this church in Tepic, Mexico. We were there a few times, so I can't remember which one it was, but we were there talking to the missionary there, who's an American guy, but had been completely immersed. Awesome, awesome guy. I think he's still down there. But I remember having a conversation with their team because we had a team of like young adults and so did they. And I think it was a time when we were living with them for like a month. So we were just there for a long time, helping out the church, getting to know each other. And then eventually they came visited us.
Yeah.
So some of them don't even speak English. Some do. And we had I remember sitting at the table having this conversation about language and how words only mean something if you have the history with them. And so he would joke and he would say all the Mexican, Spanish swear words. Because to him, it meant nothing. And they would say all the English ones. And I'm like a little Christian boy, like, like shocked, you know? But now I get it as a concept that, this means something because of its context or doesn't. You know? And so anyway, all that to say, like, this feels to me, this album, like a time capsule. And it's going to be hard for somebody listening to this, if you haven't heard it, to really get the full sense of it.
Yeah.
Unless you listen to some of it. And so maybe take a break now if you have a second and just sample it. If you're on a road trip, it's a great album to kind of skip through or listen to if you want. Or, we'll talk through maybe the tracks that stuck out for us and you can just pick one or two.
For sure.
Or whatever. But they hit it hard from the beginning. Like track one, I was thinking if...
That's what I was saying right before we recorded. I was like, that first track is
you did
in
say
your
that.
face.
I think as Christopher Reeves was to Superman, committing to that role, these guys are in it 100%.
Yeah.
There's no like, I'm in this halfway. They're full on committed.
I mean, I think today, if they were making this group today, it's one of those like, all right, guys, we got to be fully committed to this band, to this thing we're doing. We're going to get matching tattoos. That's how hardcore they were.
And I don't know, they were so mainstream that I'm sure they had some sort of producers involved. If we really dug into it,
Probably.
we could find that out.
Yeah.
But what this album encapsulated to me was teenage Christian angst in a hip hop package.
That's a really good description.
And I guess with the word teenage comes the word like naive. There's a lot of naivete in this album that we can unpack a little bit in these lyrics that you look at as an adult and go like, I don't know what other hip hop artists now that are older, like you look at like Ice-T or somebody who's like older now.
Yeah.
When they look back at their older music and they go like, maybe I'm not quite the same person that I was.
I don't know. I mean, so I don't know how long ago it was, but I remember seeing an interview with Snoop Dogg, and the lady that was interviewing him was like, "Do you have any regrets, or you take back any of this, the things that you said about women, or how you said he's like super unapologetic about it, like, nope." And he, says some crude language or whatever about women, and he's like, "Don't take it back. I still think that way.
He still thinks that way."
He's like, okay. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure that exists too. And I don't know how these guys feel about this at the time. But
exactly.
I would say in today's culture, some of the things that they talk about are like deeply problematic. And in a way that we go now and we go, oh, I would never think that way or say whatever. And maybe you would. It's some people are different. But I just wonder for the artists that evolve, Christian or non, 20 years later, and they look back, it's like, this is who I was at the time. So you kind of have to come to terms with that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think like, I don't know if it's right to like judge people on things that they did in the past. And that isn't like blatantly, blatantly bad or evil, even at the time.
No, but it is funny when I think of, because there's such a record on the internet of all of us now.
Exactly.
There are certain things on the internet, YouTube videos per se, that I would not necessarily put on my Facebook profile right now for people to see. Some people stumble across me and you go like, okay, whatever. And it's kind of funny.
It's the times, I think one of the things that stood out is that song, Socially Acceptable, on this album. And I'm like, some of these things it wouldn't be socially acceptable today.
No.
To say. And is that right or is that wrong? I don't know. I mean, some of the things that they're talking about, like the country, like pray for the country, it's slipping or whatever. Even at that time, they were thinking that. And I think today, a lot of us probably think that for today too.
Yeah. And the pendulum swings back and forth a lot. And so, people are on either side of that line too. But it is funny. I feel like the underlying message is one, because we talked about that specific song with our kids, like, oh, you guys might be into the concept here. The funny thing is, as a kid, even now as an adult, when I listen to music, I'm the type of person that doesn't really listen to lyrics, which is funny because I'm singing lyrics all the time. And in this album, you kind of have to know lyrics. So I did a lot of mumbling along, because it's so much coming at you so fast. So some of these things I come back to as an adult and I go, oh, like some of it was blatant, when you're like SEX, whatever. I was like, okay, I knew what they were rapping about. Exactly. But others, the socially acceptable stuff, I like don't even know that I caught the themes of some of the songs until later on, going back and listening to them. But what I decided after listening to this week that I would really like is just out of context quotes from this album in like a formal accent. Like, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she ain't playing. Just maybe we could do it throughout this conversation because I'm like, these lyrics, Toby Mac is killing it. And when he pops in, you're like, oh yeah, this guy is great, but also so So funny.
It's so good.
We hit the track Free at Last,
Mm.
which is based on that kind of old spiritual.
Yeah. I really like that one a lot. I've always liked the gospel
Yeah.
tracks, growing up and not even today. Like,
The funny thing is, so we were actually listening to this while we were having dinner last night
Mhm.
and talking about like the ones we liked, ones we maybe didn't like as much. And this one came to the surface as like, I didn't really like this one as much. And we were listening to it, but two of my kids got up and started dancing,
Yeah.
Around
Yeah.
the dinner. Like even the ones that you didn't like had something to just grab you.
it hits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, what do the kids say today? It smacks.
Do they say that?
I think.
Slaps. I've
Slaps.
said it slaps.
It slaps. That's what it is.
Smacks
This one
makes me think of breakfast cereal. So what was the standout track? Well, let me just pop in here with That Kind of Girl. Had you heard that song before?
No.
I can rap. I'm not a rapper. If that's a surprise to anybody, I'm just gonna, let you know now. But I could almost word for word still do this whole entire song.
Yeah. Wow.
The line, the garden where I guess they grow the olives. Well, again, I think it probably went over my head as a kid. But like, oh, the Olive Garden. I get it.
So-
These are jokes woven in here. This is funny.
Yeah, some of those like went over my head at first, and had to listen to it again and get it, or I had to ask Elizabeth, and she would like, come up with the same thing, tell me the same thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't. It went right over my head.
Yeah, and then he's going. The whole first verse is about this girl that is just completely inappropriate for this Christian boy to
Yeah.
date, and she wants to take it all the way. And he's like, I'm just looking for somebody different from the ones before, And as a kid, I'm like, I don't know that it took me a second to wrap my brain around the fact that the verses we're talking about. This is like a non-ideal person at the beginning, but the chorus is reached into the future saying, this is the kind of person I want.
Yeah.
And then, I'm looking into hooking with a lady, not a girly of the world who's shady. What's shady? I go, that's so funny.
It's so crazy because like in my world, we didn't have like the most sheltered upbringing. I was so exposed to, all the other stuff. I think one of the first rap albums I listened to or was exposed to was Bone Thugs and Harmony, gangster rap, and then Tupac.
Which now is funny. People look at with kind of nostalgia, but it was pretty.
Yeah,
I don't know
like,
their repertoire except for whatever was in popular.
So
culture.
it was very opposite. Like, oh no, if a girl came up, that's the kind of girl we were looking for. Someone that was shady. So it's like
with a shorter skirt than any I had seen in college. Yeah, but
wow.
But the problematic side to me now, looking back as a dad, when my kids are like, they're not going to be listening to this on the regular, but they'll listen to it, and stuff like this comes up. The concept just thrown into her of like, I don't need to look for her. God's going to bring her to me, so I don't have to search. Which was a very magical sort of idea of relationships that. I don't know about your growing up, but in our youth group, it was like, oh, there's just one person for me and God's going to bring her to my door. And there was a lot of like guys feeling like, oh, God told me that, you're going to be my wife.
Oh my gosh. That's so creepy.
Oh, it is. And it took all the actual work out of developing relationship out of the process. And that's what I mean about like the naive part of it.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think they thought that that's what it would do?
That was my question. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
Back then, maybe, probably. You know what? I think I don't know. I can't speak for them, but I can speak for me.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And then that next, like, when I finally meet her, I'm gonna know how to treat her. I'm gonna fulfill all her needs.
Yeah.
That is so like now I'm like, no, what are you're responsible for making this other person, like we all have idyllic views of marriage. And yes, we're supporting each other and loving each other. But if you're not a whole human being by yourself before you get into this relationship, and if you don't do the work and you're just like, oh, God gave me this person, like how many people start off that way and just end up realizing how much work, you know? You go to the altar and you make these vows, and a lot of young kids, I was pretty young when I got married, and you have these ideals and ideas, oh, it's just going to work itself out, even though I'm saying for better or for worse, you're trusting.
It's like the other side of it's like the other side of the coin of the fairy tale, thing that, even secular content puts out there, this magical thing, like
But when
Prince
you're
Charming and
watching
stuff like that.
Cinderella, you're not necessarily thinking, oh, Prince Charm. You maybe have a little bit of that.
Sure, a little bit.
But this felt to me like, oh, we 100% are like, she's going to show up. He's going to just be there, Prince Charming, or whatever you want to call him in this context, just going to show up.
And I think for me, listening to it for the first time, like being exposed to this for the first time, I understand as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and someone who's probably grown a lot more, you know, spiritually in the last 15 years, 10 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to this for the first time going like, oh, like some of the values, right, are the things that I'm like picking up on and going like, oh, these are decent people.
Yeah. Decent Christian people.
Yeah, decent, you know, and they're having decent Christian talk, you know. And they're looking at the world of, you know, over sexuality or, you know, hedonistic thought and all this type of stuff and going, hey, let's try to focus this on like Jesus. I mean, one of the songs that stood out to me was Jesus is okay with me.
Jesus is all right.
Jesus is all right.
Which is another cover.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I originally, there's a whole original.
Yeah.
Which I don't really know. I know
so
this
crazy.
one.
So it's like Jesus is all right with me. Like they're trying to like just like, hey, steer people's minds and hearts to that. And like you said, like all the other aspects of the culture. Because like I said, I didn't grow up with my parents being all throw this out of the house or you're gonna get poisoned. Your mind is gonna get poisoned.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, I don't want you to do these things, but at the same time, the world is the world. We're in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not gonna, as much as you want to take that out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
I think my parents did a good job of like, here's how you navigate all this stuff.
They give you the balance.
And
I think people come to it different ways. So I can't.
Not that it worked. I'm not, you know, I was a pretty bad kid growing up.
Well, that's what I mean. Every method has different results.
Yeah.
And every method is going to work differently or not work differently on every person. And I don't want to get too existential here. But I do feel like in my household right now, so some of these themes that I pulled from Christian culture or my church or my friends or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it came to my house and my family's experience, it was so genuine in their lives. And it was such a shift that happened for them that it was very natural for them to say, I don't want to have anything to do with any of this other stuff that I was involved in. We're not talking like drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Well, I mean, maybe rock and roll. But it was like, I don't want these things that are going to remind me of what I was because I'm genuinely a different person.
Yeah.
And I come at it as a kid only knowing them on this side and going like, why can't we watch Ninja Turtles, you know, again or whatever it was? But I understood that. And now as a dad, I might have a different method, but there's still some of me that's like, I realize at times in my life, you can call it idolatry, you can call it whatever you want. There are things that I go, this I feel like is taking too much of my heart, my attention, my devotion. I'm going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you have to, but for me, this is maybe something that's a distraction or a problem. Or, you know, I'm just gonna get it out of my book, a form of media, music, and so
it's self-discipline. It's like what's that word? You know, self kind of regulation or self.
I was gonna say restraint,
or like you know self guidance. You know,
you're aware, and in the Christian context, you know, you're prayerfully aware. So songs like albums like this, we're now, and I joke about them and they're funny, whatever, but we're like a safe space. It's like, oh, I can listen to this and not have to worry, you know, that something's going to come up, some word is going to come out of Chunk's mouth or whatever, you know? But so when he sets it up after that first couple tracks or whatever, and
Question, was this before or after the whole Kiss Dating Goodbye book?
Before.
Oh, wow.
Yep. This was part of that same culture.
This probably, fed that culture, fed that,
definitely,
you know?
Most definitely, yeah. They are very straightforward at the beginning of the album that they're like pulling samples with that little track. I don't know who Greer is or whatever that is.
Probably like their producer or manager.
But that's right before they hit Jesus Is Just All Right. And so they talk about the cover of it or whatever. I was going to pull it up. It's from the hit. Here we go. The original writer, Art Reynolds singer. I feel so dumb because when I meet other adults who are not Christian, they're like, yes, we are all very familiar with this. So some people might already know this, but I'm telling you, I had no idea where this song came from or that it was a cover or whatever. But then it cuts in from that track to say the word "I love you" and talking about like redeeming the word love. Then they hit that kind of that radio track, that WDCT. Did you listen to that track?
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It's so it really reminded me of like the Digital Underground with
Yeah.
all those guys, those hip hop artist groups, when they go to the radio station and they're like, come on, or that disc jockey guy who's like, yeah, it's just had that
flipping the
vibe.
wax.
Yeah.
The funny thing is and I don't know how intentional this was, but I feel like it must be because my kids keyed into the same thing. Like, did he just say the F word? And I'm like, no, he didn't.
He didn't, yeah.
But as a kid, I remember thinking that. And I'm like, oh, do they just throw these words in here to kind of like, make you think, get your ear going, oh.
Yeah, exactly. I think that now that's one of those things where I will say my parents hated when we would do that kind of thing, like use
like replacement words.
Because it's my dad. I remember my dad, or I don't know if it was my mom or my dad, but like we know the word you're thinking of.
Yeah, it's
in your head. So it's like it's just as bad.
I don't think. Yeah, true. I feel the same way with my kids. But here they're talking about the funk, all the funk and nothing but the funk.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even really that.
But that was the thing, hip hop, funk, was the word,
Right. Right. I think maybe one of the more underrated tracks is that "Time Is."
Oh, I thought that one slapped.
It is great. That's what I mean.
The beginning intro, the kicks, the kick and snare sound, awesome. I was like, oh, this is pretty good. No question. Now you're listening to this. The thing that people always kind of relate with or give hip hop culture, like when you're listening to hip hop music and stuff like that, is also like what you're wearing.
A big clock on a chain around your neck.
Yeah. Hey, boy. Flavor Flav. And did you have like...
No,
you didn't
not me
dress
personally.
hip-hop?
I think there were people in the culture who did. That was not me. So this was formative for me in a way that it existed, but I leaned more into like the kind of skater grungy culture, which had its own other kind of Christian like subset of music.
Well, that song was it Time? When it had like that rock guitar in it. It's the blend of the two. Yeah. I can see Toby Mac's influence on that one a lot.
Big time.
Yeah, for sure.
Just for how fast he said the word tickety-tock over and over again.
Which also reminded me of Crisscross.
Yes.
Wiggity, 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 whack.
Who were also faking it in the end, a little bit, Maybe not.
Their parents made them do it.
Yeah, how old were they at the time? Well,
I
even
don't
these
know.
guys.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, so that's that's why I asked that question, because I listened to Crisscross, right?
Yeah.
I missed the bus. Anyway.
I don't know.
And that was something I would never, ever do again.
All I know is make you want to jump.
Exactly. But I wore the style.
Yeah.
I remember going to school with my backwards pants, zipper in the back, the baseball shirt, which I didn't even like baseball, backwards with the buttons in the back.
That's
I remember
funny.
asking my brothers, like,
It's
hey,
so impractical.
He's completely.
What
But it was the
what age
style.
were you at that time?
I mean, I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
I
missed that. I do remember wanting like a letter shaved into the back of my head. A little white kid.
I think that's what my parents would have put. Like no.
Yeah, they did.
You
Mine
can go
did.
outside
They were
and look as ridiculous as you want. Who cares? It's just clothes.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna do something to your hair or tattoos, my parents were like, no.
Well, yeah, especially as an elementary school child.
Well, yeah, and even now today, they'd probably be like, what are you?
But I remember I did get the lines. It was a thing to get like lines shaved into the side of your head. So I think I had like 2 lines shaved into the side of my head. It was like a buzz cut, but
But that's what's funny to me is that Christian kids would be listening to this and wouldn't reflect the style.
Oh, they would. They completely would. Yeah, I'm just saying, I knew my role as kind of a little bit of a dork, and I wasn't going to pull that off.
Yeah.
I was, it was the 90s. I'm sure I had like some neon pants or whatever. I was not worried about style. That came more into junior high where I started actually caring And back then it was baggy pants, which are making a
Yep.
comeback now.
Yeah. And then once I went to middle school, high school, it was, Timberland boots,
Yeah. It was different for me
baggy
because we had a
pants.
dress code at my school. So
Uh,
you still like my biggest rebellion in school was this was now high school where they made for the first time those cargo shorts. I remember going to Pacific Sunwear, which is PacSun now, which is a whole different brand now.
crazy.
But then it was all skaters, and I had a friend who worked there, so I would shop there a lot and get a lot of dumb like T-shirts or fun stuff, and couldn't wear those at school. But we had to wear khaki pants, and cargo was just coming in, and it was controversial because
Oh.
is this dress code? Is it not? And
Anything to break the rules.
exactly
Or bend
these
them.
little Christian kids, and they had the pants where you could zip them off into shorts.
Oh, yeah. I had
Remember
a pair
that?
of those. Yeah.
No, not a problem until the day that my friends and I decided it would be funny to have one zipped off and the other one on.
Oh.
Not even because we saw anybody do it, just because it's like, see if we could just push the limit a little bit. And we
Yeah.
got in trouble for it. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, it didn't quite get detention. Or we had different colors cargo, so we would switch the
Switch the
bottoms,
That'd actually probably look really cool. It's going to come back. I think it's going to come back.
I don't
now
know
that you
if I'm
mentioned
ready
it.
for this baggy. Have you gotten a pair of baggy jeans yet?
Nope, not doing it.
The thing that I don't want is the weight of it. Like what I love, skinny jeans are not right now. Jeans are real flexible and light.
Yeah.
If I got to wear a pair of jeans, I remember, man, those like Menace or Jenko jeans.
Jenko jeans,
remember?
Yep.
And the chain wallet. And
Oh
it was
my gosh.
so much weight and then dragging behind you. And if you're walking in the rain, just wet pants.
But to me, I think of that as like the hip hop culture brought that out.
Yeah.
And then skaters started doing it too. And I think the like hip hop and like rock blend that like that song Time had was like, I think that's why I liked it so much, because like nostalgia wise, it reminded me of like listening to hip hop that had that, or Nirvana, like all, like that kind of thing. And so,
yeah, Nirvana never would have made it in my house, but I remember that being so popular. Like, "God, I kind of want to buy this, but the album has a naked baby floating on the front. Isn't that okay? And now all of our kids are wearing Nirvana shirts,
Yeah, exactly. It's so crazy.
And so then after that song, it goes to The Hard Way.
Mhm.
Okay.
That one was really good too.
The funny thing is, I get to that song on this album and I go, ugh, everything else was so fun. And then this one gets real sentimental. They lean into the Kevin Max, like airy vocals.
Yeah.
And I'm almost like,
It's like one of the only ones.
skip it. But then they grab me. That muted trumpet solo comes in, which is not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And then the choir oohs come in after that. And then that like U2 style guitar, that ba-na-na-na, with kind of the delay and stuff. I'm like, oh, yes. And I think that's something that, I don't know if it's DC Talk, their producers or whoever, did really well, talk about samples and pulling stuff, because there's something to grab you. So you've got Toby Mac, who's holding down the hip hop.
Yeah, for sure.
Kevin Max was a very unique, like he's not, rapping, but he's pulling in these vocals with like, just this unique style. And Michael Tate too, with like kind of that soulful gospel thing. And the blend of the three of them was just something really unique.
I think however it happened, however it came together, I think somebody was like, you guys have something pretty unique here.
Yeah.
I mean, there were other groups doing stuff like this already. So I'm sure they all were like, well, they just leaned into it. Like you said in the beginning, they were like, hey, we're committing to this
100%.
because you're good at this. I'm good at that. Why don't we put it together just like such and such and such and such? And let's go for it. And I think that's at the time that really carried,
right?
And grabbed a bunch of people.
Yep. And their band.
And something that the Christian community didn't have at the time. So,
no, they came out and they were it.
What did you think? So I listened to the remastered version on Spotify. And I was telling this to Elizabeth that I felt like I want this to get remastered again or differently, because I felt like the vocals were really buried. And I don't know if it was just in my car or how I was listening to it, but I felt like for that song in particular, I'm like, why does his vocals sound so in the back?
Yeah, that's really hard because I don't have a clear memory, because I was a kid. I was listening to it, I'm sure, on a crappy stereo boombox or in our old Chevy, station wagon. I have no idea what the sonic quality was at the time, or my old like Walkman headphones.
Yeah.
So now when I listen to it, because I know the album so well.
Are you listening to it on Apple?
Yeah.
Is it something that you uploaded or did you download it from them?
I'm streaming it.
You're streaming.
From
Okay,
them.
yeah. Because Elizabeth was like, well, I might have on my iTunes the original that I put in.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I really should go back and listen to see if that sonically sounds different than the released remaster.
But they were doing a lot of that, again, because of their, not only just the three of their unique style, but leaning into like, oh, we're going to make this sound really airy, or this one really in your face and present, or depending on what the track
or
was.
really live.
Yeah.
You know, like we're in the club singing this, like a lot of other hip hop genres we were doing too.
Yeah. But nowadays, like if you're listening to something in that same similar genre, hip hop or whatever, the low end that you can produce, you couldn't do that.
No, that's true.
You couldn't produce it, and you couldn't replicate it in a pair of headphones.
Yeah. Now you
or
can.
an at-home speaker.
Now you
Now
can.
they're pulling out these frequencies, and sometimes I'm listening to something and I'm like, this is too much, depending on where you're listening to it, how they master it or whatever. I'm like, the bass is so heavy, sometimes in a frequency you can't even hear unless you've got the right equipment.
Do you miss your Xterra with that sub you used to have?
For people that don't know, our first family vehicle, I bought this Nissan Xterra. It was yellow. I loved it, and that's what drew me to it. I got it from, so we had to drive to Maryland at the time, and the guy who owned it actually bought it for his son, who had the owner owned some ice cream company, or he was a pretty well-to-do guy.
Yeah.
And so he bought this for his son, who had it for like a year and then went to college. So we got it thinking we were in a little sedan. We needed more room for two kids to get in and out, but I wasn't fully committed to get the minivan yet and didn't have any money. So we went and found this used Xterra, and it had this subwoofer in the back that took up the entire back. I was going to get to that. Yeah. And the rims on these tires. So, I mean, for my first like family vehicle, it was awesome, but we were bumping VeggieTales in that thing hard.
Yeah. That crossover, the whole amp and sub situation you had was
it sounded
crazy.
So great, which became really impractical because you still couldn't fit the stroller.
Yeah, because you had a giant, it was like a 10-inch woofer in the back.
Double.
Oh yeah, that's right. A double 10-inch.
I'm telling you, man, that was great.
You could hear you hear your Xterra coming like 3 blocks away. It's awesome.
Anyway, so back to this album. But then it cut to this track that I looked it up because the description that I found of this said, no doubt the most questionable release by DC Talk. And it said it was originally a short, candid bit, maybe improvised on the set of the Arsenio Hall show. Do you know what song I'm talking about?
No.
I always thought they said 2 hunks and a Negro.
Oh, that's right.
But they're saying it's so short. 2 honks and a Negro. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. This is weird. It's in the middle of nowhere. What's going on?
I know. It's just, I mean, they're just talking about like, hey, we're 2 white boys and a black guy
doing
our thing.
But it's so quick. It's like 30 seconds, this little track, and
like,
then
it goes in there. Yeah.
It goes into Lean on Me.
That's right.
And I, again, as a kid, I don't know if I'd ever heard the original.
I think I heard it in a movie.
Probably.
Yeah.
But it's great with the ooze at the beginning, and they lean into that kind of soulful bit. Yep. But I honestly think the verses that they add to this, that Kevin Max, he's a great singer, but I did not.
Yeah.
The weird chord structure that they add on the Sometimes in Our Life, We All Have Pain. They make some interesting chord choices that I don't feel like suit this actual song. But then when it kicks into the rhythm, 1, 2, 3, and then they kind of hit the sock it to me.
Oh my God.
This is such a weird mashup, but this is one of the ones that I would come back to.
Crazy. No, I don't know if I don't think I like this one as much. Listening to it a few times.
No, I wouldn't say it's one of the standout best.
I skipped it a couple times where I was like, nah, let me go back to the ones I really liked.
Yeah, because the verses on it are, I don't like those. What didn't you like about it? Or it just didn't grab you like the other ones did?
It just didn't, it didn't grab me like the other ones. And it was, I feel like some of the repetitive stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, but then Toby Mac comes in with another like rap segment on this,
which
which does not fit with Lean on Me.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But I think that elevates this song a little bit more than it would have been without him, for sure. The next track is called Testimony. And I didn't look this up, but he says something about whatever his testimony is, being in the capital of the nation. Is he from DC?
Toby Mac is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah. So I think he's from Gainesville.
Yeah. Well, when he was there, he heard Sugar Hill on his favorite station. Oh man, yeah. Some of the rhymes in this. No scritty for my polity, no pop for my sickle. And since that day, I was never ever fickle.
So dumb.
Smooth T, they call him. Toby Mac.
Smooth T. Oh gosh.
Oh man, yeah.
He's a Virginia boy.
Yeah. So that was fun. And then we are full on in your face with I Don't Want It.
Yep.
I don't want it. I don't want your sex for now. I feel like this is a track that was probably pushed by the production company.
Oh, they probably like, oh yeah, probably.
That was like, here's where we want to combat culture from the Christian perspective, but it is like in your face. And I can tell you out on the receiving end as a kid, like I'm a junior higher.
Yeah.
Not even that yet. So whatever, but I'm singing along like full on, like, yeah, I don't want your sex for now. Your sex for now.
Oh my gosh. For now, because at the same time, I mean, the message is it's good, later down the road when you're married. You could see like the people around the table going, you have to write a song about this.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I felt.
What's our Christian message that we're really going to hit the kids with? that's troubling our youth right now. Well, this is a problem in our culture right now. Let's address it. And these guys are influential. They'll do it. They're gonna help us. Yeah. I mean, if it comes from them, like wholeheartedly, like I think they could have done a better job of it. I don't know. It kind of feels like it was an agenda-ish song.
It does, but for the small subset culture that was into this, I think they nailed it. Well, they didn't nail it. They nailed it.
Wow.
Sorry about that. He comes in with those like sultry vocals though.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little time for us. And the truth, the little like stings at the whatever, love is simply more compelling than the need. And then they're all for sex, and I'm like, this feels as an adult so hilariously cheesy.
Now, was there an equivalent like girl band? Christian girl band singing like the same thing?
Before Barlow Girl, you mean? That's what I was waiting for you to say.
Barlow Girl. Singing this type of thing. Because I didn't ask. I'm going to ask my wife now about this. But like, what did she think of this
I'm going to be
track?
embarrassed if I'm missing something. I can't think of anything because my vision of what was reaching out to like the ladies at the time.
Yeah.
Now, this is post Amy Grant, right? But you had a lot of single female like power singers or songwriters. So you have the Amy Grant. This was pre like Jackie Velasquez, whatever. And you had girl trios.
Yeah.
That would come out and like Point of Grace or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that was, because Sandy Patty, that was sort of the main Christian culture. But when it came to the younger crowd, I don't know.
I wish we had a video camera or something like pointed at my face right now while you were saying all that, because it.
You don't know any of those names.
It's like right over my head. I'm like, nope. I mean, a TLC, I know TLC,
right? Right.
Was Madonna part of the culture right then?
She was not, and very actively not a part of the culture. That was like what we did not even talk.
But she was around. This is what they were trying to like.
Yeah,
teach guys not to.
That's it. Well, we don't want your sex for now, Madonna, or any of the rest of you. But yeah, so the message.
The Barlow Girl was way after.
They were way after.
Way later.
I just can't think of whatever the equivalent would be. So I guess if you know, send us an email, because I don't remember.
Yeah,
I was into DC Talk.
It's funny because Elizabeth telling me that singing these songs loudly in their car while she's driving her brothers around town.
Yeah,
were you singing this one too?
Yeah, totally were. Maybe roll up the window.
With a guy her and her brothers, like one girl in a car full of boys.
No, but honestly, like I'm saying, I was in the car with my family. I didn't have my own car at the time. We had to be listening to this. me and my sister, my little brother.
Yeah.
You know, this wasn't a track that you're playing at youth group.
No,
it was like a
I guess
deeper
not,
cut on the album. But if you had the album, you knew it.
Yeah.
But it had the same subtext, because near the end of the song, he says it again. He says, just wait for the mate that's straight from God.
You didn't do it with a voice.
Sorry. Here we go. But then again, safe ain't safe at all today. So wait for the mate that's straight from God. Don't give it up till you tie the knot. Don't want it.
I can hear that being said, like when I was a kid, from the preacher on a Sunday morning to like the youth, you know, talking like a marriage sermon or something.
You mean the content?
The content.
Totally.
You know?
He wouldn't be singing the song.
He wouldn't be singing the song, but like that lyric you just, in that tone, like totally would have been somebody saying, and to the youth out there in the crowd right now listening.
Yeah. And then at the end, they cut in with the like, red leader, I don't copy. What are you saying?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
I don't even know where that
really
comes.
to drive it home. Like, this is what we're saying.
Yeah. Are you sure this is what you're saying? Because we're not on the same. I'm not getting your message. Your sex for now. And then the next track that sounds like an advertisement. Willpower.
Oh my!
You know that?
I know. Yeah. What's up with that?
I don't know. It sounds like an old like Micro Machines track or something or other. But I feel like lifts the energy of the album. It's like, oh, we just got real like serious about our message here.
Yeah.
But hey, we're still having fun, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if these guys if they could go back in time with the way the industry is now, where you have a little more freedom and not so much like input from the corporate board going, hey, we're going to release this album. We expect this much from you here. You know, this is the message you're trying to send. Like, you was probably controlled by some type of Christian organization.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder how.
You mean if it would come out sounding the same?
Yeah.
I mean, not the same, but.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Well,
is there anything like that today?
That's kind of what I meant, where now these three guys they're all, or at least two of them are still actively in the industry and doing stuff. Toby Mac I'm not actively listening to all of his music, but I'll come across a track every now and then that I'm like, oh, this is great.
And it's really good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. With more
Michael Tate,
creative control.
I just saw him a few months ago, you know,
On a scooter, you said?
on a scooter, loadout, backstage, just having a grand old time.
The Newsboys is a whole other thing that I don't know. It was happening simultaneously, and I was really into that.
Yeah.
Were you exposed to Newsboys at all?
No.
Because they got mainstream in like Christian culture, but me and my friends were into them when we were just starting a band and I was playing drums. They're like old stuff. And so after this album in the car, I went back to their Not Ashamed album.
Yeah.
Do you know that song? I'm not ashamed to. No,
dude. I need to listen to all that stuff.
Okay,
too.
so that's a track though. Those ones that they won't play. Like Michael Tate is leading the band now, and they'll come out and they'll probably sing like "Shine" or whatever people really know.
Yeah.
But there were two albums, maybe three before that, where it was almost like Australian underground, weird, piano-driven. And they're still doing piano stuff, but it was not as fun to re-listen to as this one.
So
there were
funny.
a couple standout tracks on that album, like Not Ashamed is real classic. I'll have to show it to you.
Yeah.
But some of the rest of them, not so much. But their later stuff, it evolves. But again, like you think, okay, yeah, these guys were being obviously steered into let's produce something for the Christian culture with the message that we want to give. And yeah, with more creative control, I don't know if they would have still done that because they were still really young.
That's true.
We're grabbing these young, talented people in the way that the world outside of the Christian industry, you know, mainstream will just grab young people and be like, here's what we want you to be.
Yeah.
And then you watch them evolve too. And you see these young artists start to become like, oh, I'm going to be myself. And then you have like a Miley Cyrus now who's like very like pushing against that stuff that she was doing when she was doing Disney or whatever else. Or
I feel like they all kind of do that.
Or Lucy and I just went and saw Lizzy McAlpine at the Anthem. And I don't know if you're familiar with her music too. And I don't know how, I found her as a recommendation from like Jacob Collier, a Coldplay or something.
Yeah.
But really great singer-songwriter. But even she is like, oh, this previous album didn't feel like me at all. I felt like I was having to whatever. And, you know,
appease somebody. Yeah.
Every artist and every human has that. Like, well, this was me figuring out whatever.
Yeah.
But some of these people who are talented like this have to figure it out on this giant stage.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
and for it to be tied to your Christianity,
Yeah.
I feel like is a real mind bender. Like no wonder, he's deconstructing Kevin Max
Yeah.
or anybody, because it's like, what did I really believe and what were people just telling me and what was I forced to say? And I'm singing these crazy things, and I knew I was supposed to believe it, but did I?
Yeah.
That's
For
really
sure.
hard. That's really hard.
Yeah.
I have a lot more grace now for people, I feel like, whereas then I was very much, here's the wall, here's the boundary, here's the line, don't cross it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and we don't have to dig too deep into faith here, but obviously that's my world. So now when I see people, there are still people who are like, I won't listen to secular music, and that's fine too. Or the people that do, but it's like, okay, well, what's deeper? Where are you at? What are you actually thinking, believing? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want the talking points. I don't. We can sing the songs or whatever, but what's actually going on? Like that's what really matters.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the those are the things and messages and the questions that some artists today are asking that are like what needed to be asked a long time ago.
Yeah.
Or like bringing out some of that hurt, Christian culture hurt from the past, healing that now today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I hear a lot about a lot nowadays is just like the word church hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's that that generation trying to force a standard
Mm-hmm.
without realizing like, hey, we're all just broken.
Yeah.
And no one's going to be perfect.
Right.
And we need to be able to walk through and walk with the things that we come across.
I think in the same way that our culture now is figuring out, like we were talking about, I think social media and what that's doing to us and we don't actually know. This kind of Christian culture was really new at the time.
Mm.
And there was totally a place for people who were leaving a non-Christian culture and diving into this 100%. Okay,
Yeah.
so say my parents or whatever. But for the kids growing up in this was all new.
Yeah.
So there was a place, a mental place for people who had left all this, whatever stuff that they had experimented in or addiction or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But for the kids growing up in this, here's where we are now. There's no conversation about that. We don't touch that. We don't talk about that. That's this other outside stuff.
It's this whole thing is like, as a parent, I have different influences and things. And there's this really awesome quote of like, you have to let kids do dangerous things safely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like you were saying, the parents maybe had a worldly life, came to Christ, and now they're trying to protect their kids because they know better.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't ultimately good for you. Yes, it's better for you to not sleep around. You're going to contract a disease. It's better for you to, God says, it's marriage is something that he's established, that he's done. It's good,
Mm-hmm.
And so like you want to give, that culture wants to give Christians and youth growing up something good.
Empower them, give them something to aspire to.
Yeah. You want to, it's just like having a kid. You're like, I want you to go out and play outside, but I want you to avoid
breaking your arm
if you climb a tree too high. And
did we talk about this already? I can't remember if we talked about this on the podcast, but the idea of that happening less and less because kids are getting safer and safer.
Exactly. And then what happens is you get kids that are, maybe you sheltered them too much and now they face the world and something's too hard and then they give up. They have no resilience. And I think the pendulum is swinging back now where Christians, we have to learn resilience again.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be resilient unless you go through some hardship, go through some, how to navigate the world. Parents can't just, and Christians can't just say, here's a wall, don't do these things because we know they're wrong. Yeah, okay, but you have nothing built up to how to navigate it.
That's the hardest thing, I feel like, or at least one of them as a parent, is believing something so to your core
Mm-hmm.
and trying to pass that on to your kids where they believe it too.
Yeah.
Like I've been convinced of something. That's not just parenting. That's just life. You know, John Mayer has that whole song about belief. And when I first heard it, you know what song I'm talking about? Where he's like, we're never going to win the world.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're never going to beat this if belief is what we're fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I first heard that and I was just becoming exposed to like maybe more other music.
Yeah.
And I was going like, that's what a terrible message. What a defeated kind of message. And now I come back and I'm like, oh yeah. If all we're fighting for is the idea that somebody else comes to the same assent of like, I'm going to say this creed. I'm going to say that I'll come into alignment with this because we all believe without actually getting to the heart of why or what the transformation is. We just have a bunch of people that talk like they're Christians, but then just kind of go out and do whatever they want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which feeds actually kind of into this next, like that little radio track where they're like, willpower, the power to will the way, temptation. Temptation sold separately, batteries not included.
It does sound like one of those commercials for a toy, an action figure.
But I thought, I kind of like that as like, oh, you can't make this happen.
Mm.
I wasn't thinking about that too deeply as a kid.
Batteries sold separately.
Yeah. Batteries not included.
Batteries not included.
And then it gets to, it's so much fun, that Word to the Father track. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Man,
it's one of the last ones. So I don't know if you got to it as
Is
many
it the
times.
short one?
No. This is one where you get Toby, Mike, and Kevin. Word to the Father, word to the Father.
Right. Yes, yeah.
Pump it up. I don't even know what they're saying. But that was great because it combined the hip hop element, the harmonies, sing word to the Father. It's got a really, really solid groove. And then you get that Michael Tate vocal over the end of it. Like, I give my life. I'm not gonna sing as well as him, but it's like sing over the top. That groove on that whole song was so nice. I could listen to that a couple times.
So good.
But actually in that song, I didn't realize this at the time, but they rattle off a bunch of their previous song titles.
Oh,
so
really? I didn't get
if you were a DC Talk super fan and you know New Thing, the album before this.
Oh, wow.
They have a whole verse. I didn't get this as a kid, but I knew the previous album. So he gets into press second and third verse. I love rap music. Can I get a witness? Without the things of this world. These are all DC Talk song titles. We need to talk it out. Stop spinning around.
Wow, that's pretty smart.
Take it to the Lord. Heaven bound. Time is ticking away, which is a previous track on this album. Tearing down the walls. Like it's all.
Dang.
And then that God is always working. It's from another song.
That's pretty cool.
So they're sampling themselves.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I think they did that on purpose. Because remember, there's one track where they're like, Greer is like, you're sampling a bunch of stuff. I don't know if we can get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the whole fun of it. And we're gonna sample these things. We're gonna sample ourselves at the end. Like that's the whole album. That's a
kind
really,
of meta way to do it.
Yeah. It's super creative.
And then they cut.
You got to give it up to, being creative. Even if you feel like someone like me, even if you feel like, oh, they're just ripping off a bunch of stuff. Like you got to give them props because they're being creative, taking it and putting their spin on it, being creative with it. You got to give them props for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so when we talk about does it hold up, or is it pure nostalgia?
I think it's pure nostalgia.
If you ask me, not only pure nostalgia, does it hold up? I say anybody who listens to this, you would have to give them a lot of caveats. They would probably need to listen to this whole conversation. And I think it's fun. Like I will play this, the kids will dance. I'll go back to it, I'll revisit it. I will smile the whole way through. Yeah. It's so fun.
I think my kids would enjoy it too. I mean, Elizabeth's got them into New Kids on the Block. They're going to love this.
Totally. That's what I mean. The vibe of it, so great. As an adult going to listen to this, I just feel like you need to know a few things before, especially if you didn't grow up in the culture.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Christian culture, because there's so much going on there.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I think the Christian culture then is, once you have something that you know to be true to you, you want to let everybody know. That zeal.
That's exactly it.
And you can fall into the zone of wanting to force people to know the same thing you know.
Yeah.
And it's not up to us.
I think
that's where their downfall is in some of the things that they, the culture was kind of doing to the youth at the time.
Totally. But the thing that I loved in both in my house and in my church growing up is the people who did believe this 100%, which was my parents and the people that I was around. You get why they would listen to something like this and then just dance around the house. Like, because they are feeling a freedom from something that you're not finding anywhere else.
Yeah.
And for those people that are experiencing real life transformation, that's what has always drawn me to church. That's the substance that I want. And then you be as goofy as you want. Listen to whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because you really believe it.
Yeah.
And then I'm in it. I'm in it 100%.
Yeah.
When it comes to sampling other stuff, we talked about that. So, you depending on what your belief and where you want to pull your resources from, because I, as a musician, as a creative person,
Yeah.
I want to now take that message, show it to somebody in a way that I feel like you would like this and respect it, and it actually is meaningful and it's not silly or
Yeah.
cheesy, or because if it's that, it kind of takes the weight out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. You're right. And everyone gets, you enjoy something now, and you only enjoy it because someone else did it first, and or influenced you in it in a good way.
Yeah.
We all kind of, artist wise, music wise, we're all like standing on shoulders of people that came before us, that laid the foundation of what we enjoy today.
But what I love the most is when you get a glimpse of somebody and you can tell, you can feel it in the way they sing or perform or create, that they're 100% genuine.
Yeah.
Christian or not, when you tap into that human experience, and then especially when it comes from, that perspective from like, oh, you're delivering a message that you believe in, and it comes out in the way that you deliver it.
That's the stuff that moves people. And in the church sense too, people that are, on stage leading worship, I've heard it said all the time, we can tell when you're faking it.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys, I don't know, I never saw them live. I know they have this album in a live version, so I'm really curious to listen to the live
or
portion
watch
of
it. I wonder if it's streamable.
Or watch it, yeah. But if they were really believing it and really genuine about it, I think, I wouldn't doubt that they were, because I think they're still making money off of it today. They're still like, I think I looked it up. It was like 12,000 listeners a month of this album on Spotify.
Wow.
Yeah. So does it hold up? I don't know. I don't know, but for some people it is.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think it's definitely fun. For me, it holds up, but it is 100% nostalgia.
Yeah.
But other things of this time in this era, you're going to listen to hip hop from back then and go like, oh, this is funny, but I love it.
Yeah. It's got the cheesy thing to it. I mean, the entire time listening to it, to me, I kept bringing up different memories of other things that I listened to in the past. I forget which track it was, but it reminded me of the game music for Gran Turismo 2.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, see, this is like, it had a very Gran Turismo music, like soundtrack vibe to me. I'm like, this is what it sounded like when you hit pause on the game and
That's
the music.
funny, and it took you back.
And it took me back to that. I'm like, oh man, it's that Fender Rhodes keyboard sound, kind of thing. So yeah, I enjoyed listening to it. I enjoyed like talking to my wife about it, and her excitement around us talking about it.
Yeah. That's what I love. I would love to grab each listener and sit with them in a room and listen to this with them and then talk about it. Because just to get people's opinions and thoughts, because it's so fun to get that.
Yeah, so crazy. And it was really cool. And to listen to something that in my world I kind of missed growing up in a Christian household, totally missed this portion of culture, for better or for worse.
Yeah. When we talk about what you're thinking now, I'm curious, what are you listening to right now? So if this was like the thing of the time, what's your thing that you go to?
Oh my gosh. You know what? So recently, I'd actually been going back to old David Crowder stuff.
Like the David Crowder band stuff?
Yeah.
Any particular album? I was just telling my kids about the Guitar Hero guitar era.
Yeah.
Because we did a birthday party at Dave & Buster's, and there's a Guitar Hero machine there. And I wish there was some new version of it, because that game is still so fun.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to them the first time, because they'd never played it, how the controllers work. And I'm like, you have no idea how ubiquitous this, or if that's the right word, this was, where everybody knew it. And I'm walking through with them on the easiest settings,
Yeah.
And there were two people standing behind us to use the machine after a bit. So I'm like, oh guys, let's let them use it. And they threw it on expert mode and just went for it,
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm not even ready for that. It was
That's
fun.
crazy. Yeah, I think A Collision by David Crowder.
Yep. I love that album.
Really
and
cool.
the follow-up, the acoustic-ish version, the remix, whatever. Is it B Collision?
Yeah. And then Remedy.
Yeah.
That's such a great album. The live one was really great.
Live
too.
one was great, where he's playing on the toaster, and they got a bunch of weird. They have the robot drummer then too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I forget what his name was.
Steve 3PO?
Something like that. Yeah. That's, I mean, I don't know why I went back to that, but I think I was talking to somebody else about this a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago. It was, Sunsets and Sushi.
Mm-hmm.
Remember listening?
Forgot about that.
I remember listening to that in my parents' house in West Virginia, and like laying on the ground on the like the driveway at night and listening to "I Can See the Stars."
Oh yeah,
bright."
yeah.
It takes me back to that moment in life or whatever. So
I love music.
oh, dude, love music.
For so much, like I listen to so much like audiobooks and podcasts and stuff. I actually don't, and because I'm singing a lot, I don't listen to a lot of music. But then with all these road trips, I keep coming back. And so now I found different music platforms that have different algorithms and they'll suggest stuff. That's how I found Lizzy McAlpine.
Yeah.
We went and saw Jacob Collier. Do you know Jacob Collier?
I haven't listened to him, but I know who you're talking about.
I knew him previously from YouTube videos, watching him because he's like, as far as a musical genius goes, he'll just come up with this stuff. And you're like, the amount of stuff that he knows as a really professional jazz musician, but also a very creative, out of the box musical thinker.
Yeah.
And he's got a really unique sounding voice. So I wouldn't like listen to his voice and go, oh, I want to listen to this guy a lot. But what he puts together and produces musically is so well done. And then what he does in collaboration. So he was on a Coldplay album.
Yeah.
He did a track. It's him and Lizzy McAlpine and John Mayer all together.
Dang.
Which is great. I recommend anyone to go find that
I
track.
need to listen to that.
And now I'm trying to remember the name of it and it escapes me. Never Gonna Be Alone.
Okay.
So a really good, and there's a couple different versions of it. And so we saw him in concert. High energy, all over the stage. He plays like every instrument.
Oh,
He's
crazy.
on the keys.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
playing the bass. He's playing this weird modified 5-string guitar that he has.
Yeah.
He's singing these vocal parts. He's putting together harmonies. Man, if you're like into music, it might not even be your style. He started out, there's a whole promo for Jacob Collier, but this like project that ended up becoming 4 albums. And so take your pick.
That's cool.
Or just search out there for something and you'll find, it's so
That's
good.
awesome. And I always go back to listening to Switchfoot. I'm a big Switchfoot fan. If you know me, I love Switchfoot.
Yeah.
John Foreman.
Raise that flag.
Right? Remember that?
Yeah,
That
I
was
do remember
awesome.
that.
That was awesome. I remember at that concert, people leaving and people asking me, how do you know John Foreman?
Yeah, this is getting really long, but I have to tell the story because we were at the concert and a friend of ours, so kind, got us these front row tickets. And so we're there at Wolf Trap, right?
Yeah, Wolf Trap.
And the lights come up for Switchfoot.
Yeah.
And John Foreman sees you and points at you right at the start. And what was the album with the white flag? Were they, whatever it was, I don't know what it was, but
Vice versa.
He handed you the flag to swing
Yeah.
around. You're like, here, take this. You're taller.
Yeah.
It's this giant flag. Thank God you were standing next to me
This is
because
home.
you knew all the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I am a fan, but not, you're a super fan.
Yeah, heck yeah.
He stood on your car.
Yeah, for sure. Played the acoustic guitar on my car, on top of my car after a show. It was awesome. But they released that album again.
Yeah,
The Beautiful Letdown. And they did one where they had a bunch of artists do their songs.
Yep.
And so I was exposed to this guy who's great. He's awesome. I don't know if you've probably heard him. John Balian.
I don't know.
So I've been listening to him a little bit. He's so good.
Which track does he do on theirs? Like which cover?
Meant to Live.
Yeah.
And that's what exposed me to him at first. His vocals, that song, they really did it. He did it in a very different way.
Yeah.
Than Meant to Live is on the original track, which really stood out. And I think it was one of the best renditions that the artists did of that album.
Totally.
So I highly recommend John Balian.
That's cool. I'll have to look up more of his stuff because that's the only one that I've heard of his.
Yeah, so good.
But yeah. Well, okay. Well, we'll try. We'll see on this next episode if we can creatively tie it in because I already have an idea of what we can link to that's going to kind of tie off of this DC Talk. It'll be a surprise. You wouldn't associate this with DC Talk, but it's going to be really fun to revisit, and I'm looking forward to it.
For sure.
This is really fun. I'm already trying to think of other albums that I can introduce you to.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I love talking about music. You know, me and you have done so much together musically.
Right.
So I was excited for this conversation, excited for more like this too. So yeah, just let us know if this was good for you guys too.
Yeah, because it's fun for me to talk about. I love hearing people's musical background because it really says a lot about them. them.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's so much of your life. But yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Let us know what you think about this or future topics or ideas. We'll definitely give you a mention if you suggest something. And go ahead and go into Spotify. I've been adding "Does it hold up?" as a question on Spotify, so you can just scroll down and vote there.
That's really cool.
And let us know if you have any other suggestions of other stuff there. For sure, give us a review and a 5-star rating. We would love it if you share this with somebody.
We'd love to shout you out on the podcast too.
I will say anybody's name. If they promote this, you just let me know and I will shout you out. That might get dangerous down the road, but right now we got airtime. So yeah, if you have any ideas that you want us to review an album, just email us at album@wdyt.show.
Nice.
What do you think?
Yep.
wdyt.show.
Be honest.
Be honest. Yeah, let us know. All right. Thanks, Osari. This was super fun.
Thanks,
Looking forward to
Jeff.
next time.
This was awesome. All right, everybody.
We'll talk later.
Peace out.